Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Fantasy Pros Football Podcast. I'm Ryan Wormeli, joined as I am every Friday by Derek Brown and Pat Fitzmaurice. We are answering and asking key questions here for Week 11. Quick reminder for everybody, all of our weekly consensus rankings and tiers can be found at fantasypros.com/rankings. We have the least impactful bye week we've had in a while, except for the fact that Jonathan Taylor is not playing. If you remove that from the equation, it's only two teams, and one of those teams is the Saints. So Colts and Saints are the two, of course, which is a lot easier than it has been. We had the 6-team bye. We've had some 4-team byes with a lot of really good players. Colts have obviously been great this year. Jonathan Taylor is like the story of fantasy, but he's really the main megastar that is missing, from these teams on bye. So more games to get through, more players that we can get to pick from, and actually can start something closer to a fuller, true lineup at this point in the season. Before we jump in, though, one player who is maybe elevating to superstar status in front of our eyes, TreVeyon Henderson, coming off of a 3-touchdown game. They gave him a couple carries close to the goal line to try and get him a fourth. It didn't happen. But 19 carries overall, 62 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, and then he had 5 catches on 5 targets, 31 yards, and one of those was a touchdown as well. Fitz, this is somebody that you were ranking, I believe it was your RB8 in Dynasty before the season started. Very, very high on him. Obviously a slow start. Obviously somebody that you and Debro have not like fought on this year on the show, but have disagreed on at times on the show about, what this was going to look like in the second half. Some vindication for you here on Thursday Night Football. By the way, Patriots win 27-14.
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel super vindicated. I don't know if I've been overly high on Henderson relative to the community. I think we were all kind of waiting for this. It was just strange that he was not getting a little more usage. Like, I don't think it's crazy that they were mixing in a lot of Ramondre Stevenson. But it's going to be really interesting to see what it looks like going forward. I still think the Patriots might prefer a bigger bodied guy near the goal line. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was still Ramondre getting most of the touches inside the 5-yard line, the 10-yard line going forward. But I do think the genie's kind of out of the bottle here with TreVeyon Henderson, and he's going to be a really solid running back 2 the rest of the way.
I was going to ask to put a number on it, rest of season ranking. Just obviously you're not beholden to this, but shooting from the hip right now, where do you think he's going to be rest of season rankings come Monday morning?
Get mid-range running back 2, like I'll say running back 17, 18.
Okay, Debra, how does that sound to you?
I think people are going to I'm not going to say overreact, but a 3-touchdown game coming off of 3 games in a row of being a bell cow. I'd be surprised if he's outside the top 13 to 15 running backs for people rest of season rankings, just because overreaction season is real. And I'm not taking anything away from TreVeyon. And I want to be very clear about how I framed TreVeyon in the last few weeks. His efficiency metrics have not been good. But, dude, he is playing they are opening up big holes, and his speed is taking over, and he's getting a crap ton. He played 90% of the freaking snaps last night, guys. I don't know if that keeps up with Ramondre back, and obviously Terrell Jennings was active, but not really active. So I don't know if they continue to ride him like a true bell cow the rest of the season. But the volume, the touchdown equity with this offense, it's wheels up rest of the season for TreVeyon.
So you think mid-range running back 2 rest of the season or higher?
I mean, I was just looking at it right before Worm kind of went. RB14 is kind of where I'm at, Fitzy. Him versus Saquon,
yeah, but Saquon is still a bell cow. I don't think Ramondre is just going to be a straight backup to TreVeyon Henderson when Ramondre gets back. I think it's going to be maybe 60-40 in Trey's favor, but I think Ramondre is going to have a pretty substantial role still.
That's fair. I mean, I probably 65-35 TreVeyon. I just, with him versus Saquon, it's one guy is the clear bell cow, but he's not doing anything with the volume too. Outside of the Giants game, it's that's pumped up his season-long numbers a ton. So,
yeah, given everything we've heard from Vrabel, would it totally stun you, Fitz, if it was 60-40 in favor of Ramondre once Ramondre is healthy? I mean,
let's hope not.
I'm hoping not, but I wouldn't.
I don't think
say
so
there's
after the last
0% chance that happens. Just
not after the last 3 weeks. If TreVeyon hadn't looked like a total freaking stud at different times, then I think I think you're probably right, Worm. But I to Fitzy's point, like, how do you put the toothpaste back in the tube at this point? How do you do that?
Yeah, you can't unring that bell. Drake May looked really good. Wasn't his biggest fantasy day, but he was his usual good self. Diggs was good. On the Jets side, like, Fields was bad, but he had 60 yards and a rushing touchdown, so of course that helps you a ton in fantasy. Is Mechie, D-Bro, somebody that you're interested at all catching the only touchdown here? I mean, I feel like we don't even really need to talk about the Jets side of this, truthfully.
No. I mean, the answer, honestly, with their passing game is just nobody. Even after coming off the IR, like, when are we going to see Garrett Wilson? Like, do we see him the rest of the regular season? Like, this is not a team that, like, needs to push him out there. They're going to still continue to not win games. I know they were competitive-ish in this game. It's really just breathe. Because, dude, like, Fields is playing at a point where Tyrod, it is live every single week where Tyrod could take over at any point of the game. Like, that's how bad he's struggling. So, it's really the Jets are Breece Hall and then a lot of I just don't care.
Yeah, I mean, Garrett Wilson, best case scenario, is back for the fantasy playoffs, and like that he's coming up.
I doubt it.
Rust will be a factor. He'll be, stepping into a poor offense in all likelihood. Like, yeah, Fitz, like, A.D. Mitchell, he got 6 targets. Of course, he only caught one of them. I mean, just like, what is there to talk about here with the Jets, or can we just move on?
We can move on. A.D. Mitchell. Like, A.D. is still intriguing for Dynasty, but man, like, he did not make the most of his targets last night. He looked pretty bad. And in fairness to Fields, like, Fields' passing numbers should have been a little better if A.D. could have actually made some professional catches.
Yeah,
that's fair.
All right, let's get into the Sunday slate. We have one final. I think I said it was the last one last week, and of course I was wrong. There was one final international game here. Commanders versus Dolphins in Madrid. So one last chance to get up early, one last chance to take advantage. Well, not last chance to use it, but a last prime opportunity for autopilot tool of Fantasy Pros in case there's any surprise inactives or injuries or anything in the morning and you're trying to sleep in on Sunday. This is the last one of the season, though. Like I said, Commanders, Dolphins, not exactly going out on a high note for the international slate here. If I took Devon Achane and Jalen Waddle off the table, they are not options for you. Which player in this game would you most want to be starting this week, D-Bro?
Dude, there's actually a bunch of guys on the Commanders side I can make a case for here.
Okay.
I could talk about Chris Rodriguez being a really solid RB3, maybe an RB2 if he gets into the end zone this week. I'll go with the position that I think people are kind of struggling at the bottom end. I'll go with Zach Ertz here. It's a fantastic matchup for him. Like, Miami's allowed the 5th most receiving yards and the 7th highest yards per reception and the 3rd most fantasy points per game to opposing tight ends. Like, I've got Zach Ertz as a tight end 1 this week. I'm playing over and 2 players that I highlighted last week that I think people are emphatically point chasing on. I'll play Zach Ertz over Cade Otton and Dalton Schultz this week.
Okay. Ertz is ranked as tight end 16 in half PPR scoring, so
it's too low.
You are above consensus. It also sounds like you're above consensus on Rodriguez. Chris Rodriguez is RB 42 in consensus.
So his ranking versus Bill is wrong this week. Like, he left the game with an injury and Bill was benched. Like, in the first half of that game, Chris Rodriguez played almost 70% of the snaps. So ECR has it wrong. Bill is above Chris Rodriguez, and that it should be flipped. Like, in my rankings, I have them flipped. Am I wrong, Fitzy?
Maybe not. I mean, the shoulder injury for Rodriguez is sort of the wild card.
But he's practicing in full. He's practicing in full.
I know.
ECR has been wrong on Bill for months at this point. I mean, he has not topped 6 fantasy points in half PPR scoring since week 5. He hasn't gotten double digits more. That week 5 is the only time since week 1 he's been in double digits. I don't understand why he continues to be ranked. I mean, it's starting to drop a little, but he's still inside the top 36 of the position. I get Miami is a nice matchup, but especially with the emergence of Rodriguez, and it's the fact that it's not going to be a high scoring offense in general. I mean, I've been fading Krusky Merritt, I feel like I said, for months at this point. Fitz, who's the player in this game, again, besides Waddle and Achane, obviously, that you'd be most interested in starting?
Yeah, I kind of don't want to play any of the Commanders running backs because there is still ambiguity, and the Miami run defense has actually been better.
It's been better,
lately.
yeah.
It was a train wreck in the first part of the season, but they kept Bijan Robinson and James Cook under wraps in recent weeks. So I really don't want to play Debo if I don't have to. Like, Marcus Mariota started 4 games for the Commanders. Debo had 11 receiving yards in 2 of those games. The other 2 were okay, 6 for 72 and a touchdown, 4 for 29 and a touchdown, but we've seen the floor is pretty low. So, you know what? I mean, I would be willing to play either of these quarterbacks in a pinch. I've got Mariota QB 13, Tua QB 15. Mariota's 4 starts this season, QB 6, QB 17, QB 19, QB 13. So not bad. He offers some rushing value, and the Dolphins have given up the 9th most fantasy points to quarterbacks. It's Tua who has a really appealing matchup here. Like, the Commanders are 30th in defensive EPA per play. They have the worst opponent passer rating in the league. They're giving up 8.9 yards per pass attempt. No one else is giving up more than 8.2 yards per pass attempt. The pass D has just been atrocious. And Tua's been pretty good over his last 3 games. 69% of his passes completed, 7.3 yards per attempt. The only thing is that the Dolphins are favored in this game. And in Dolphins wins this year, Tua's not thrown more than 26 passes in any of them. Like, they want to run the ball if they can.
I mean, maybe this is just recency bias. I feel like Washington might actually be a worse pass defense than the Bengals. Just like the last couple of games, they have been non-competitive on the field. Yep. It's been so bad. Mariota is ranked several spots higher than Tua in ECR. Debro, do you see them as close, or would you maybe make the case for Tua ahead of them or ahead of Mariota?
I see them as close. I think with the rushing equity that Mariota has, I would rather lean with Mariota. But I think there's actually a lot of really interesting QB2s this week. Like, you could talk me into Geno Smith, Davis Mills, a lot of different guys that like in that have good matchups and stuff that could pop off. So like, I think once you get past about QB 9 or 10, there's just a long tier of guys. You can make your case for your guys at that point.
Do you like Geno more than Tua?
I do, only because, to your point, Fitzy, I don't have a problem with Geno's volume, and Dallas is going to push the Raiders. Like, I have a better vibe about Geno's volume in that game, and Dallas putting the Raiders in catch-up mode, and they're going to have to pass.
The point about pushing them is a good one, but I worry that the Raiders' offensive line might be pretty close to non-functional, and we sort of saw
That's
that
fair.
With the protection of Geno the last time.
That's fair. I mean, the only counterpoint that I can offer with that is Dallas's pass rush is kind of same thing. It's like basically weakness versus weakness.
They did add, to the defensive line, so we'll see how much
fair.
of an impact that has here in the coming out of the bye. All right, let's go to game number 2 here in the regular early slate. Panthers at Falcons. This is a rematch of a game we saw back in, I believe, week 3. The Panthers defense shut out the Falcons in a 30-0 win that week. It was one of the most surprising games of the season. So, Fitz, I'll start with you. Can the defense limit this offense again, or are you expecting, like, obviously you're not expecting a shutout, but like generally will it limit it again, or are you expecting a much better output from Atlanta's stars?
I mean, Bijan Robinson is certainly due to snap out of this little mini funk he has been in. First 7 weeks of the season, Bijan averaged 21.7 half-point PPR fantasy points per game. Over the last 3 weeks, 9.2 fantasy points per game, which has been worse than Kimani Vidal and Kyle Monangai and some other, not exactly superstar running backs. So, first time against the Panthers, solid game for Bijan, obviously. No touchdowns and a shutout, but 13 carries for 72 yards, 5 catches for 39. And the Panthers' run defense, which got off to a pretty good start this season, seems to be crumbling a little bit. James Cook destroyed Carolina a few weeks ago, 216 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. And last time we saw the Panthers, creaky old Alvin Kamara had his best rushing game of the season. So, yeah, I like Bijan this week. And how can you not feel good about Drake London? He's been on an absolute tear. 5 touchdowns in his last 5 games, over 100 yards in 4 of those 5 games. He had 5 for 55 against Carolina the first time around. I think he'll fare better this time.
Debra?
I think Atlanta wins this game, and I think the offense looks a lot better. And to Fitzy's point, yeah, Carolina's run defense has taken a step back. Like since week 6, they've allowed the 6th highest yards per carry to zone runs at 4.62. Bijan Robinson, 75% of his runs have been on zone concepts this year. So wheels up for him. And Drake London, like, And this is basically the entire Atlanta Falcons passing offense just in general. But I do think that Kyle Pitts also has a really strong game in this one. But Atlanta, I think they roll, man. Like this at home, and they're only getting 3.5. I think they cover that, and I think they win.
I was going to ask about Pitts because Carolina has this reputation as being really poor against tight ends, and it's deservedly so for the most part. Yeah, but Kyle Pitts back in that Week 3 game, just 4 catches for 39 yards. You might think, oh, well, it's Kyle Pitts. That's actually a good day for him. It's one of his lower days of the year. It's not that out of line with a lot of his fantasy output this season, but it's not like it was towards his best day either. So they did limit him, the way they limited everybody else. What about Penix? We just talked about some of these other quarterbacks like Mariota and Tua. Is he somebody that, like, in a pinch you're considering, D-Bro, or?
I'm not, only because, to Fitzy's point, I think this is the big bounce back week for Bijan Robinson. He has 0 touchdowns in his last 3 games. You want to talk about a massive touchdown regression candidate, like where everybody's like, oh, the Carolina run defense and blah, blah, blah. And then Bijan drops 3 touchdowns on him. I think this is the regression spot.
Fitz, what do you think about Penix?
Super flex. I've got him on like RB25. And I'm pretty pro Penix, but I think it's maybe a run heavy spot for the Falcons this week.
I'm with you, Fitzy. I got him at QB 24 too, so we're kind of hand holding there.
Do you have, by the way, guys, Bijan as RB1 this week with Jonathan Taylor out, or are you going with like CMC or HN?
No, gotta go McCaffrey.
CMC. Yeah, I got McCaffrey. I got Bijan at RB2, but I think there's a really interesting like top 4 running backs of the week. Like you could make a case for Bijan, CMC, Josh Jacobs as like all of those guys.
HN.
Oh yeah, HN. Sorry. HN I have at RB3. So yes, HN. Yes, dude. Yeah. Excuse me. Sorry, Fitzy. I'm bad.
All right, let's go to game number 3 here. Buccaneers at Bills. I couldn't quite land on what I thought was like the perfect question for this, so I want to kind of fall back on what I do when I can't come up with a good question, which is have you guys pick one player in this game whose consensus ranking is too low, and one player in this game whose consensus ranking for this week is too high. Fitz, we'll start with you.
I think Baker Mayfield is maybe a tad too low. Like I'm 2 spots above consensus on Baker. ECR likes Matthew Stafford and Caleb Williams more. Those guys have really tough matchups. I mean, Stafford has to face Seattle. Their defense has just been outstanding. Caleb has to play the Vikings on the road in US Bank Stadium, a really tough venue for opposing quarterbacks. I realize the Bills' D has been pretty stingy to QBs in fantasy this year, but I like Baker Mayfield's outlook now that his offensive line is totally healthy. And I think Josh Allen and the Bills can push Baker into a shootout type of game. So too high, like I feel like ECR always seems a little too high on Khalil Shakir, who I like a lot, but the ceiling is pretty low. Has not had a 90-yard game this season, let alone a 100-yard game. Shakir has 3 touchdowns, but only 1 since week 4. ECR has him wide receiver 29. I'm just a little bit lower than that.
Is Shakir going to play this week, guys? That's a real question I was going to ask you, Fitzy. Like, ankle and ribs, he's been limited non-contact jerseys. Like, I think he probably goes, but it's up in the air.
Yeah, I mean, even if, setting injury aside, Shakir is somebody that I've been confused by his ranking in past weeks where it's just like, I just don't think the ceiling's there, like to your point, Fitz. Are they playing tool on fantasypros.com gives Shakir an 89% chance to play based on the practice reports and everything. So keep an eye on that for sure on Friday. We're taping this Friday morning, see what the Friday practice report looks like and if that changes. But right now, we're projecting him to play. I think like most weeks you could just like kind of, blindfold, throw a dart and say like, you know what, I'm just going to throw Khalil Shakir's name out there as ranked too high this week, and you've probably been right. Again, it's good player with a bit of a floor, but like that ceiling is just not there. So I'm with you there. Debra, what do you think about what Fitz said on the quarterbacks? Do you agree with Baker as maybe like should be higher than like a Stafford or a Caleb?
Yeah, I agree with Baker. I think the only thing that like if Bucky plays this week and they're able to kind of lean on the run game, that's the only worry because the Bills, you can always run on the freaking Bills. That's been true of the last like 2 or 3 seasons. The consistent drum that I've been beating and I'll continue to beat here is Keon Coleman. Like in ECR, I never understand. Like to Fitzy's point about Khalil Shakir, why is Keon Coleman, like I know that he had the outlier game last week. If you look at his game logs, it's been pitiful since week 2. And Like since week 2, wide receiver 71 in fantasy points per game, but he's like ECR wide receiver every single week. He's like a wide receiver 4. There's just other guys I would much rather play over Keon Coleman weekly. Like matchup for perimeter wide receivers is good versus Tampa, but again, I have no faith. The guy I wanted to bring up here, and this is, I'm not saying that I don't have him as my QB1 just like everybody else. I think there's an interesting conversation around Josh Allen. Like Khalil Shakir is banged up. Dalton Kincaid is not going to play. He's got the hamstring issue. Keon Coleman hasn't been doing anything. The last 5 since week 5, Josh Allen, QB12, QB17, QB9, QB3, QB8. But in ECR, he's QB1 with a bullet every single week. Like, is Josh Allen a little bit too high? I just want to have the conversation, guys. I'm not saying that I don't have him like buried in my ranks or anything like that. I'm not insane. But are we still a little bit too high on Josh Allen?
The week you fade Josh Allen is the week he runs
he's
for
gonna
60 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
The rushing is always that wild card, especially since he scores so many rushing touchdowns. And here's the interesting thing. Like, I get what you're saying, Debro. There is this fair perception that the Bills don't have much of a downfield passing game this year. But what's kind of crazy is that, I mean, I suppose this has something to do with the shorter passing game, but Josh Allen, currently over 70% completion percentage. He's never done that in his career. Currently, he's averaging 8.1 yards per pass attempt, which would go down as the highest mark of his career, which you would not think would be the case for a guy who is not doing much business deep downfield.
I agree with that. If you would have asked me what his yards per attempt were, I would have guessed high 6s, low 7s. Wouldn't have been there.
Yeah, if you look at just like the number of attempts, week 1, he had 46, obviously, but 25 in week 2, 28 in week 3, 22 in week 4, 31, 26, 19, 26. Like, he's only been over 30 3 times this season, and one of them he was at 31. So it's the game against Baltimore and the game against Miami where, they were trailing in those games, obviously, and the rest has been just not throwing a lot. This game against Miami last week was his first 300-yard passing game since week 1. He just didn't, have any rushing touchdowns in this one, so it didn't, ultimately end up being this huge high ceiling day.
That's a pretty high level game manager you've got there at quarterback for Buffalo.
But Baker, has been good, really good at times this season. Like, this could be the type of offense that pushes them, to your guys' point about Baker being a little low, and therefore it becomes something close to a shootout and a big Allen day. I was telling you, Debro, before the show that I have to pick between Allen and Hurts in a guillotine league. I have both, and you were saying that you would actually go with Hurts over Allen.
Yeah.
What do you think about that, Fitz, between those two?
I'm still Team Allen.
So Allen does feel like one of those guys where it's like, just don't overthink it. Like, just again, if I got eliminated in this league because I sat Allen and this is the week he has 350 and then another 80 on the ground, like that would be pretty devastating.
I'm just playing into the total, and I think that the Lions and Eagles offer more shootout potential than probably this game. But maybe I'm wrong with that. To your point though, Worm, are we too low on Emeka Egbuka this week? Like, honestly, like, he's wide receiver 9 in ECR. The matchup is fantastic. Buffalo runs a crap ton of too high versus too high. And Emeka Egbuka's splits single versus too high have been massive. That's why you've seen some of the volatility based off of coverage matchups in his weekly performances. Dude versus too high, amongst all wide receivers, at least 75 routes, Emeka Egbuka is 5th in yards per route run and 9th in fantasy points per route run. So, like, should he be closer to being a top 5 wide receiver this week?
I mean, maybe, obviously he got hurt in week 6, so throw that one out. Week 7, I know he got 12 targets, but, he was very likely not going to play most of that week going into that Detroit game, and then he ended up doing it anyway. But, I think you can kind of throw that out, not knowing exactly how healthy he was. So besides those 2 games, he has been a top 8 wide receiver more often than he hasn't in the games he's played this season.
Like him versus Justin Jefferson, who's right ahead of him in ECR. I would easily take Emeka this week. Am I crazy here?
I don't think you're crazy. We actually are going to get to Justin Jefferson during that Vikings game, and I think he's a really interesting conversation. Long term, there's a lot of talk about him as a great buy low right now. This week, I mean, I know the Bears have a bad defense. We'll get to that one, but I think that's actually a really good head-to-head. Let's table that for the Vikings conversation. Okay. Before we get to the next game, today's show is brought to you by our new presenting sponsor, Hard Rock Bet. If you're listening to this podcast, you're probably deep in the stats, injury reports, and matchups. Put your fantasy football knowledge to the test on Hard Rock Bet. Try your first bet on Hard Rock Bet today. Just place a $5 bet, and if it hits, you get not only your winnings, but $150 in extra bonus bets. And if you're not sure what to place your first bet on, check out the Hard Rock Bet Stats Hub. It's loaded with trends, streaks, and stats to help guide your picks. Numbers don't lie, and neither does the data in there. Check out the Stats Hub now. Get the edge and bet with confidence. The Hard Rock Bet Sportsbook app is the only legal sportsbook for whenever you're in Florida. It's also live in Arizona, Ohio, New Jersey, Indiana, Tennessee, Virginia, Illinois, and Colorado. Coming soon to more states too. Plus, Hard Rock Bet offers new promos every single day. So whenever you're listening, just open the app and check out what you've got any day of the week. Download the Hard Rock Bet app and make your first deposit. Next game here, guys. Chargers at Jaguars. Kimani Vidal has alternated from RB8 to RB33 to RB7 to RB44 to RB8 in the last 5 weeks. Very much alternating. I believe Jake on yesterday's show said it was like the even year San Francisco Giants winning the World Series every other year. That's what it's felt like with Vidal. So I ask you guys, is week 11 going to be another top 8 positional finish, or is it going to be another week outside the top 30 continuing this pattern, Fitz?
Maybe this is the week we get a middling game out of Kimani Vidal, because on one hand, the Jaguars are easier to throw on than to run on. Their pass defense is 20th in DVOA, run defense 12th in DVOA. The Jaguars have held 6 of their 9 opponents this season under 100 total rushing yards. And meanwhile, their pass defense has allowed the second most fantasy points per game to quarterbacks. They just gave up 292 yards and 2 touchdowns to Davis Mills. On the other hand, the Chargers need offensive balance. Like it's great that Greg Roman has thrown a willingness to go pass heavy. I think they rank 2nd in pass rate over expected this year, but the Chargers offensive line is just kind of a mess without Joe Alt. And the Steelers got pressure on Justin Herbert on over 40% of his dropbacks last week. Like that's a problem. You have to protect Justin Herbert. You have to run the ball to keep the Jaguars pass rushers from cutting it loose and going after Herbert all the time. So I think Vidal gets a good number of carries this week. I just don't know if he's going to be all that efficient against a pretty good run defense.
Just quickly, I want to mention, because we've just wrapped up that conversation, actually like 4 minutes ago, one of the Bills beat reporters tweeted that Khalil Shakir heading in the right direction and should be in a good spot for the game, according to Sean McDermott.
Awesome. Also,
Kincaid is officially out, but I think we were kind of expecting that. So Vidal is ranked kind of in that middling range in ECR. He's RB18 right now. Not that that's middling, that's ranked as a starter, but just compared to kind of this like alternating between top 8 and outside the top 30, relative to that, it's kind of middling. Debra, what do you think about what Fitz was saying about, the Chargers passing game in general? Like, I was really nervous about them against Pittsburgh because of the Pittsburgh pass rush and the state of this offensive line. Obviously, the Chargers win that game very handedly, but I think it's something that is like, it's still fair to be nervous about that going forward, even though it didn't limit them so much in that game. And Vidal obviously had a great game in that week. So what do you expect out of this game in general? And is this going to be a game where Vidal gets a chance to shine?
I think, and to Fitzy's point, this is a horrible matchup for him on the ground, but I think kind of like last week, volume wins the day. Like, I think the Chargers win this game. I think Trevor Lawrence struggles in this game against the Chargers pass defense. The only saving grace for the Jaguars to move the ball, I think, is a big game, or at least a big opportunity for Travis Etienne. Like, if they can keep it neutral, Etienne should be able to just chew the Chargers up on the ground. Now, in this game with Vidal, I think you get closer to the spike week potential. Like, I'm with Fitzy. Like, I think it's more of a middling, like if you're playing the median here. But if I got to pick one side of the aisle to be on, I'd be more pro Kimani Vidal. The matchup is horrible, but I think what you've seen in the games where he has had the spike weeks, it's the Chargers get up and they're able to just kind of feed him carries, and he gets there based off of volume, and he gets in the end zone once or twice. That's probably where I lean with Kimani Vidal, because I think the Chargers can run away with this game. If Trevor Lawrence, who has not been good, like guys like versus too high coverage right now amongst 38 qualifying quarterbacks, he's 26th in fantasy points per dropback. And the Chargers pass defense has been really, really good. I think he could struggle, and they could struggle to move the ball consistently with him.
Sorry, did you say where do you have him ranked?
Ooh, Trevor Lawrence. It's going to be basement level. I'm pulling him up right now.
Did you mean Lawrence or Vidal?
QB 26.
I actually meant Vidal, but I would.
Sorry.
Once you said Lawrence, that is curious.
No one's
Vidal,
starting Trevor Lawrence.
Nobody's starting Trevor.
Yeah.
Kimani Vidal, I've got at RB20. Like, I'm in kind of there's a very interesting conversation of him versus Quinshon Judkins versus Woody Marks. Kind of in that area code.
And
20 for me also.
20 for you also. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go to that Bears at Vikings game that we alluded to earlier, talking about Justin Jefferson. J.J. McCarthy had the most passing yards of his career last week, but it didn't really help fantasy managers in terms of the receivers because exactly half of them went to Jalen Naylor, who nobody was starting. So I want to ask about the two guys that people would be starting, Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. Where are you guys ranking both of these players coming off games where they both received at least 11 targets and they both finished with under 40 yards? Debro, I'll start with you. I know you've been a big fan of J.J. McCarthy throughout.
Yeah, I think this is a good game for J.J. McCarthy. Like, the Bears' pass defense has been just an utter mess. I'm looking for Addison. I've got Addison at wide receiver 34. I've got Jefferson at wide receiver 10, kind of just splitting hairs between him and a bunch of other top guys like Emeka Egbuka I have above him. I have Jalen Waddle ahead of him. I got Amon-Ra right ahead of him, but I think like him versus Nico Collins is a very interesting conversation. Addison, it just comes down to the coverage structure. Like, Addison versus single high has not been great this year. Like, he has big splits. Too high, he gets more of his usage. Single high, his target per route run rate has dropped to 15% with 1.4 yards per route run. So, not that in on Addison. But JJ, like, I think this is a bounce back game for JJ McCarthy and Justin Jefferson. Like, the Bears' pass defense has been terrible, and Jefferson has been good versus single high this year.
I find myself very nervous about starting anybody in this passing game, just, from what J.J. McCarthy has looked like. He's obviously made very good plays sprinkled throughout these games. He has these flashes where you're like, holy cow, like, he can really spin it. This is a really impressive play. But like, obviously, like, I watched that game very closely against the Ravens, and he just sailed so many passes. I felt like the first interception really rattled him, at least in terms of how he threw it. I mean, mentally, maybe it didn't. I don't know. He doesn't seem like that type of player, but like, I felt like just in terms of the throws he was making and his willingness to, just to put out the ball, I thought it was a really poor game from him. And I'm not saying he can't get better, but right now, I'm pretty terrified to start Addison and Jefferson. Like, obviously you're not going to sit him, but I'm pretty terrified to rank him highly, even against the Bears defense that's so bad. I feel like I need to see more out of McCarthy to have a degree of confidence there. Fitz, I know this is something that you and I talked a little bit about yesterday. How are you feeling about this matchup?
Yeah, I agree with Debro that it's a really good spot for J.J. McCarthy, although I would urge Debro not to skate any victory laps with the Stanley Cup high above his head if J.J. McCarthy has a good game, because he has been terrible to this point. Like, they're just terrible. Like, he has made a few big time throws and like, he can really rip some impressive throws at times, but I don't know how many times he's thrown balls directly into the outstretched arms of defensive linemen this season. You talked about his tendency to sail throws. It's getting a little panicky in the pockets. But the Bears, like, they're giving up 22.2 fantasy points per game to quarterbacks, third most. They have been playing without their two best cornerbacks, Jalen Johnson and Kyler Gordon, for most of the season. Those guys are on IR. They're not coming back this week. But right now, Jefferson in 4 games with McCarthy, 17 catches for 209 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's like just over 52 yards a game. But I am a little above consensus on both Jefferson and Addison. Debro, I do have Jefferson ranked ahead of Emeka Egbuka this week. I just think he can victimize a secondary that has no one who can cover him.
That's
like,
fair.
Tyreek Stevenson on Justin Jefferson, like that.
Wolf.
That screams 180-yard day to me. If McCarthy can have a competent game.
Debro, did you feel like again, I watched that game very closely on Sunday, obviously. I felt like it was the worst game I've ever watched Justin Jefferson play. Not even talking about the quarterback performance. I thought he was awful, and it was really confusing. I was like, is he fighting through an injury I wasn't aware of? Is there some like off-field mental thing on it? Like, it looked like the Marlon Humphrey interception where he barely moved. It was like Jefferson made no effort to try and tackle him.
Did the same thing on the other pick too.
It was
neither
the same thing.
interception, right?
Super weird.
That's the thing, and I know everybody's going to think this is all copium. I'm just dealing with like trying to cape up for JJ. There were 3 plays in that game that were all centered around Justin Jefferson that could have swung the stat line for both of those players, both JJs in that game. Both of the picks to Justin Jefferson and the bang play for the touchdown that Jefferson dropped. And I understand it was a tight window throw. I understand he got hit right after he got it. If he makes 2 of those 3 plays, and that's the biggest problem where I have, like, where it's like people looking at the box score and saying he completed less than 50% of his passes. He had 2 picks. He was just god awful. It's like that game could have swung very differently. And I felt like the vibes around Justin Jefferson, I don't know what's going on with all of that, but the vibes around Justin Jefferson, him loafing after both those picks and just being like, I don't care. I'm not running, whatever. I don't know what's going on there, but I'm with you guys that, like, I just think context matters. And this is just like, I could blanket this with all quarterback interceptions where people look at the box scores and they say, that quarterback had a terrible game. And when you watch the game, it's like, not all interceptions are created equal. And some of those are on the quarterback and some of those are also on the wide receivers too.
Yeah. And by the way, can I just say, like, we should give like JJ McCarthy a little grace. It's been 4 NFL starts.
Yeah, nobody will do that, Fitzy. Everybody wants to hate the guy. That's just
any negativity I have on McCarthy is like, for right now, I'm nervous about starting these receivers. Yeah. I am not at all writing him off like long term. He's made 5 starts. That's nothing.
Yeah, and everybody wants to bury him like he's terrible. I think one of the narratives, and I'm sure this will get talked about going up to Sunday, is JJ versus Caleb, and I think that is, and honestly, both of their career arcs have been very, very interesting, and how both of them play in this game. It's very, very interesting. Yeah, I'm going to be glued to this game.
Caleb's turned the corner. His offensive line has been healthier and better, I think you could say.
He's had a run game he can lean on. We can't say that for Minnesota too, you know?
There was a really interesting conversation on the Athletic Football Show with Robert Mays and Derek Klassen this week, and they were talking about how Caleb actually does play similarly to JJ in terms of neither of them really has that true like rhythm in the pocket yet, but it's like Caleb is like the more physically talented version of JJ, so it just looks a little different with some of the arm talent and things like that. But
my problem with what KOC has done to this point, there's not a lot of easy button things that he's doing too. Like I feel like, and this is again not me, Cape Verde, you don't see a lot of screen passes in this offense right now. It's a lot of like 5-step drops, grip it, rip it, a lot of like deep over routes and stuff, like where it's like, dude, like some of these easy button throws, like last week, a few screens to Justin Jefferson. Okay, why don't we do that a little bit more? Why is TJ Hawkinson just like absent from the passing game, man?
Yeah. The other thing I would say before we move off this game is like, you know, for as much as we talk about like if JJ's being inconsistent, can still make good plays, but like it's not there every time. You don't need that many good plays for somebody like Justin Jefferson if he's right to take advantage and have a good day. Like if McCarthy makes 6 good throws in this game and 20 bad ones, which I'm not saying it'll be that ratio, but if that happens, if 4 of those 6 throws are great throws to Jefferson down the field against this secondary, that can still be a really good day. It was funny, after we taped yesterday, Fitz and I were talking a bit, and Fitz said, I don't think Justin Jefferson didn't look like one of the 3 best receivers in football in that game against the Ravens. And I was like, I don't think he looked like one of the 3 best receivers in Minnesota in that game. Like, it was really shocking to me how poor he looked. I cannot remember him ever looking like that before. So hopefully just a one-off and it gets better against, again, a really poor secondary and beat up secondary in the Bears. Let's go to the next game here. Packers at Giants. Debro, new coach and a new starting quarterback for the Giants this week. It'll be Mike Kafka and Jameis Winston. How do their changes impact your interest in their players for fantasy purposes against the Packers? Talking about guys like Darius Slayton, Wan'Dale Robinson, Tyrone Tracy, etc.
Not a ton. I mean, it's not a great matchup for the Giants. I think if you want to talk about the changes and Jameis versus Russ in this game, one, I don't think Darius Slayton plays in this game. The hamstring issue, I do think holds him out. I think it just with the quarterback change, because dude, Russ has been horrible this year. Horrible. Outside of like the game against the Cowboys where everybody's like, oh, see, good Russ. Dude, he's been god awful. I would say the quarterback change, and I guess me feeling a little more optimism about anybody in the Giants offense would probably be for Theo Johnson, because Russell Wilson does not, access the middle of the field. He does not see the middle of the field. He will not utilize the middle of the field. So looking at a player that's going to use like a lot of schemed up touches, middle of the field routes, Theo Johnson's probably the guy that I feel a little bit better about in this game, especially against the Packers, have given up the 9th most receiving touchdowns per game to tight ends. But outside of that, I don't feel great about the Giants. This is one of those games where, like, you talk about the Packers need a get right game where they can like really try to put the pedal to the metal and put up like 30 and like walk out of this game and be like, hey, look, our offense is humming. We look a lot better. Like, this is the opportunity for them to kind of do that.
Fitz, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm fascinated by what we're going to see out of Jameis. He could this could be a Micah Parsons 3-sack game. It could be a 4-interception game for Jameis. We know Jameis wants to push the ball downfield. Like, he is a hyper-aggressive downfield thrower who will try to make hero throws into tight coverage without hesitation. And we saw this in the Browns. The 7 starts Jameis made for the Browns last year, averaged 291.1 passing yards per game with 12 interceptions in those 7 starts. He was quarterback 10 in fantasy points per game over that stretch. That included a 36-point game and a 2.6-point game. So high ceiling, low floor for Jameis. Place your bets. And, you know, how can we forget Jameis's final season with the Buccaneers in 2019 when he had a league-high 5,109 passing yards and a league-high 30 interceptions. So the prop on Jameis's passing yardage is something like 227.5. I already bet the over, even though we don't know if Slayton is going to play. And right now, is he going to start? Tool 8% on Slayton, so probably not. But I think Wan'Dale Robinson probably has a big game. Theo Johnson could have a nice game. We could see some rando like Jalen Hyatt have a big game for the Giants. But, you know, again, we could also see Jameis throw 4 interceptions.
You can let Autopilot manage your fantasy football lineup automatically, so you never have to worry about last-minute changes. Auto-swap inactive players and ensure your lineup is always optimized, even when you can't be online. Take control with the flexibility to approve lineup changes via email or let Autopilot handle everything. Stay ahead with My Playbook Autopilot, available now for Fantasy Pros premium subscribers at fantasypros.com/myplaybook or on the Fantasy Pros app. Next game here, guys, another rematch. Bengals at Steelers. Obviously, this was a very fun game. The first time we all remember the incredible Thursday night matchup between these two. That was back in week 7. Pretty much every player in the game had one of their best fantasy days of the season. DK Metcalf is the only one who didn't, and his day wasn't awful. It just wasn't one of the best, like pretty much everybody else was. So are you guys expecting more fireworks in this rematch? Or, you know, Steelers coming off a bad game. Joe Flacco has been great, but is older. Like, are you expecting maybe a bit of a come back to earth performance here, D-Bro?
No, I think it's fireworks. I think it's fireworks for everybody in this game. Like, a lot of really interesting flex options like Calvin Austin. I think Jalen Warren has a big game in this one. I think it's fireworks for everybody except for, you talked about DK Metcalf having a quiet game. I think he has another quiet game. DJ Turner, I think, shadows him in this game. Turner followed him on 78% of his routes, held him to 2 catches and 45 scoreless receiving yards. So I think there's a lot of intrigue, and I know a lot of people are going to talk themselves into Steelers tight ends. Just don't do that to yourself.
I was going to ask. Freiermuth, 111 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Just none.
Back to the well.
One of them is going off. You just don't know which one is the problem.
Darnell Washington, 2 tutties coming in.
Fitz, what do you think? I mean, on the Bengals side, it's pretty easy. Like, obviously, Chase and Higgins were excited about, and you know, Chase Brown had 108 rushing yards. He didn't get in the end zone, but he had over 100 yards the last time against the Steelers. On the Steelers side, you know, where do you think the ball's going here?
Yeah, Jalen Warren, probably a lot, and sort of a equal opportunity. Again, I do think there's going to be a Steelers tight end who goes off. I agree with D-Bro on DK Metcalf. I've already bet the under on his receiving yardage, which I want to say was like at 54.5 yards. Was that it, D-Bro? So
yeah, it was in the mid-50s.
Yeah, but like the Steelers had a hard time moving the ball against the Chargers. They will not have as hard a time against a Bengals defense that ranks dead last in defensive DVOA and dead last in defensive EPA per play. And meanwhile, the Bengals averaging 32.8 points a game, and Joe Flacco's 4 starts and their last 3 games, 33, 38, and 42 points. So more fireworks.
Fitzy, real fast, where are you ranking Chase Brown? Because Samaje Perine maybe being out of this game, I want to be above consensus on him because I think that he's the guy that could pop off for maybe a bigger game than people are anticipating.
15.
Okay, that's exactly where I'm at. Like I struggle with him versus like Kyren in a horrible matchup, and yeah, that's where exactly where I'm at right now too.
He's 13th in ECR. The two names behind him are Kyren and Derrick Henry.
Dang it. I'm going to have to move him up a little bit.
I was going to ask which octogenarian quarterback you guys liked better, but it looks like you both have Flacco inside the top 10. I mean, Rodgers is inside the top 15, so it's not like he's ranked lowly, but you guys both have Flacco higher.
Every week, Flacco is ranked as like a low-end QB1, high-end QB2. Why? He's QB1 in fantasy scoring since he came to Cincinnati.
Yes. I love that you pointed that out, Fitzy, because I wrote that up in the primer, and I was actually surprised when I found it. Week 6, QB1 in fantasy points per
volume,
game.
Dude. 43.8 pass attempts a game.
Yeah, he's been QB 15, QB 6, QB 7, QB 2 in those 4 games.
He should be a top 10 QB this week. Easy.
And the game against Pittsburgh last time, that was the QB 6 game. So, obviously coming off the bye here. So since he's older, maybe that bye week, gets to rest up and come back even hotter now. Get resting those old bones. That would just a super fun story watching Flacco this season. Honestly, it's really like 7 years ago, I would have told you I thought his career was basically done, and now here he is, like QB1 over a month-long stretch. Pretty great. Let's go to Texans at Titans. This is rematch week, really. This is yet another game we've seen already this year. The Texans shut out the Titans the last time these two played. Nico Collins was great last week. Davis Mills targeted him a whopping 15 times, and Davis Mills will be starting again this week. But the Jags are a great matchup for Nico. His 2 best games of the season by a mile both have come against Jacksonville. So I'm wondering what you guys expect from him this week out of Tennessee, D-Bro.
Wide receiver 11 right now in my rankings. The matchup is really good. Since week 6, the Titans can't cover perimeter wide receivers, 5th most receiving yards per game, 2nd most PPR points per target. My only hesitance with Nico is in this game, how much does Houston have to throw the ball? Because Tennessee's not going to push them. Like if Houston gets like 2 defensive touchdowns, or like a defensive touchdown, and Woody Marks rumbles for like 1 or 2 in the game could just be like, forget it. We're going to shelve the passing game. We're just bleeding the clock and we're out of here. That's the only worry that I have about Nico Collins. It's not the matchup. It's what is his floor and ceiling versus with volume, and what does that look like? Because I don't think Tennessee can push them at all.
Fitz?
Feel the same way. I have Nico, wide receiver 11. I feel like it's kind of an obvious ranking because there's like a tier there. He's at the bottom of that tier, and then I think there's a bit of a drop off to wide receiver 12 after him. And like Debro said, Tennessee does not have an outside cornerback who can hang with Nico, but I think the Texans would probably love it if they could have Davis Mills throw 25 passes.
Yeah. He's 10th in ECR, by the way. Waddle, I'm assuming you have ahead of him. He's right behind him. And Nico.
I do have Waddle one spot ahead.
Waddle's 11th, so that's the one that is different from you and consensus. But yeah, in that back end of that kind of tier of guys there. Would you, Debro, just given what we talked about, like have any consideration like Nico versus Justin Jefferson?
I've got Justin Jefferson 1 spot ahead of him. And I guess to kind of flip this a little bit, where you at on Woody Marks this week, Fitzy? Because I think if we're talking about the air getting taken out of the ball, I think this is another big Woody Marks game, and he had 80% of the freaking snaps last week. Like, he's the player that I'm like, okay, well, if I'm down on Nico, I'm pretty freaking high on Woody Marks.
Running back 21, just because I'm not sure it's another 6-to-1 ratio with touches and snaps for Woody and Chubb.
I got him at RB 18. But I mean, I think the conversation kind of starts around that Chase Brown tier, like RB 14, 15-ish, somewhere in there. So
let's get to the late afternoon slate. We'll go a bit quicker on these because we went pretty long on the early slate here. 49ers at Cardinals, first game up with Marvin Harrison Jr. missing the game. Obviously, Trey McBride is going to get all of the targets, but there's only so many passes that can be thrown the way of one player. So besides McBride, is there anybody else in this passing game worth considering in fantasy fits with Marvin Harrison Jr. out?
I have Michael Wilson ranked wide receiver 39. There's just nothing to suggest Michael Wilson is actually good, like 1.09 yards per route run for his career. That's a really bad number. But would it be a shock if Michael Wilson got 10 or 12 targets this week? Like Fantasy Pros has him projected for 3.8 catches, 46 yards, 8.1 half-point PPR fantasy points. I think that's a little conservative, just given the likelihood that he sees a target bump. So I think the projection should maybe be closer to 10 half-point PPR fantasy points. I think he's at least flex-worthy.
Debro?
I don't want to start anybody outside of Trey McBride. And to Fitzy's point, yeah, like I think it's volume that we're talking about with Michael Wilson. The other thing about it is like San Francisco's pass defense has not been good overall. Like they can't push the quarterback. They give up a ton to slot wide receivers. I wanted to ride up Greg Dortch, but the problem is that I mean, Arizona kind of plays into the 49ers' hands here in the sense that, like, they have the 11th lowest 11 personnel rate. Like, they're not going to run out, like, a slot receiver a ton. And to Wilson, like, the matchup's just not great, man. Like, since week 6, 49ers, 13th fewest PPR points per target to outside wide receivers, 6th fewest receiving yards per game. I'm with Fitzy on that he gets a volume bump, but also I'm with Fitzy on that I don't think he's very good, so I don't know if he does anything with it.
If you want a chance to win a Justin Jefferson signed Vikings jersey for free, courtesy of our friends at pristineauction.com, all you need to do is head to fantasypros.com/contest, complete the form, and either download the Fantasy Pros app, leave a review for the podcast, or follow us on X, Instagram, or TikTok at Fantasy Pros. The more actions you complete, the more entries you receive. We will be announcing a winner on the podcast near the beginning of next month. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to subscribe and turn on those notifications so you can be alerted when new episodes are up and to claim your prize. Let's go to the game of the week here. Seahawks at Rams. This game absolutely rips. It's featuring the top 2 teams in a lot of folks' power rankings this week. So rather than come up with a question, I just want to kind of preview this one in general because I think we're all just really excited to watch this game. Rams are favored by 3 at home on Hard Rock Bet. That's actually as of the last time I looked. I'll double check and see if that's moved at all. But last time I checked, they were favored by 3 at home on Hard Rock Bet with the line at 48.5. So which sides do you guys like for this one from the betting purposes? Debra, I'll start with you.
I actually want to take the under on this total. Both of these defenses are really good. Both of these offenses play slow. That gives you so many outs. Like yes, we can make a really good narrative. Like, okay, both these offenses are good. Seattle's passing offense has been hyper efficient. Does that regress and does that happen this week? Their running offense has not been able to really get going and find a lot of traction week to week to week. And Stafford's playing obviously like MVP level, and I guess I'm most interested to see Puka versus the Seattle secondary. Like they have given up the 11th fewest schedule adjusted fantasy points per game to both slot and perimeter wide receivers. So I actually want to bet the under in this game, guys.
Okay. By the way, I did check on Hard Rock Bet. It is still 48.5, and it is still Rams by 3 at home.
There's so many outs to the under, man.
What do you think about the just Rams -3?
I think the Rams can cover that because I worry about Sam Darnold and some of the ghosts of Christmas past kind of popping up this week versus that pass rush.
Yeah, I kind of lean the same on the Rams side. I'm iffier on the total. I feel really torn on that. Fitz, how do you see it?
I agree with Debro. I like the under. I just think these defenses are both really good. I don't see this many points. And like Debro said, the pace is a little slower with these two teams. I think the Seahawks are the best team in the league right now. So I like getting points with them. And Debra, the Puka thing, like, are you at all worried for Puka that they're kind of pulling him off the field and using all this 13 personnel with 3 tight ends on the field at the same time? Like yeah, they have used 13 personnel on something like 40% of their offensive snaps over the last 4 weeks, which is just wild. Like they are trying to force opponents into using base defense, and Seattle does not want to play base. Like they want their base to be a nickel, but they can kind of get away with it because Nick Emanwari, their rookie safety, like can do a pretty good impersonation of a linebacker, just so big and physical. So like I really want to see that chess match between McVay and McDonald here.
To your point, Fitzy, one of my favorite bets of the week, Terrence Ferguson anytime touchdown. You can get it like plus 650 to plus 700 with the matchup. Like the Rams are rolling 3 deep with their tight ends. You give me those type of odds on an anytime score and a really good matchup, and he's the explosive element like with those tight ends. That's one of my favorite bets of the week.
Fitz, you talked about Seattle being just the best defense in the league. Like, Stafford has been playing quarterback better than anybody the last 3 weeks. He's been on such a heater that I kind of feel like the Rams might be the best team in football just with the way Stafford looks and I trust in
I was going to say
the 25 to
top three.
Yeah, the 25-2 touchdown interception ratio kind of speaks for itself.
He's been so good for over a month. I mean,
what happened to that back injury? Where's the back problems that we were so worried about? Like, did we get hoodwinked in training camp?
I'm super excited to watch both sides of the ball of this one, but Stafford and McVay against the Seattle defense and Mike McDonald, like, I am pumped for that. That's going to be an awesome matchup. Probably a more boring matchup is this next game, Ravens at Browns. There wasn't a ton I wanted to hit on here. Again, another rematch, although the last time these two teams faced, it was when Flacco was still the quarterback for the Browns, so it looks a little bit different here. I just want to have you guys rank the tight ends in this one. Mark Andrews, Harold Fannin Jr., and David Njoku. They're all within a few spots of each other in ECR and half PPR scoring. At least they were when I put the sheet together. I'll check to see what that is updated to. But how do you guys see it? Fitz, I'll start with you. Andrews, Fannin, and Njoku. How would you rank those three?
Just a big collection of sort of the tight end 2 logjam. Mark Andrews, tight end 13. Harold Fannin, tight end 15. David Njoku, tight end 18.
Okay, so they're all within, what was that, 6 spots of each other?
Yeah.
It's in ECR, tight end 14 for Andrews, tight end 15 for Fannin. Njoku's a little lower at tight end 20. He did drop a couple spots since putting the sheet together, so they kind of view him as the odd man out. But you have it in the same order, though, Fitz. Andrews, Fannin, and Njoku. Debra, do you have the same order, or would you mix it up at all?
I got it mixed up, and I'm low on all these guys, but I've got Fannin ahead of Andrews. Just Andrews' volatility. If he doesn't score a touchdown, he's basically a nothing burger in the games and fantasy just in general. So you're really banking on a touchdown with him. But I've got Fannin at tight end 15. I've got Andrews tight end 17. I buried David Njoku because his route share dropped to 48% last week, and he wasn't on the injury report. So, I mean, he's not going to run it like routes, at least on half the dropbacks. Like, I've got him buried at tight end 26.
You're obviously not going to sit guys like Lamar and Henry. I would just say, like, the Cleveland defense is really good at home. The Ravens have lost 3 of their last 4 games in Cleveland over the last couple of years. Like, I am not expecting a very good game by this Ravens offense. Like, I think the Cleveland defense is going to play really well. And, like that game in week 2, don't get fooled by that. The Ravens scoring 41 points in that game, because that was a lot of short fields from turnovers by Joe Flacco. Now, Dylan Gabriel could do the same thing, but I don't expect the Ravens to really move the ball all that well against this Browns defense. I don't think Derrick Henry is going to move the ball well. I don't think Lamar Jackson is going to have a great game.
Okay.
I'm kind of fading the Ravens in this one.
Can I give you a little bit of hope on Derrick Henry and this being a really quiet bounce back spot? The Browns run defense has taken a step back, like a pretty sizable step back. Like, since week 6, they've given up the 10th most rushing yards per game. And in the Derrick Henry wheelhouse, Worm, since week 6, the Browns have given up the 7th highest explosive run rate. So I think this is a really good, like a sneaky good bounce back spot for Derrick Henry.
I hope you're right. I like hearing it. Let's go to Chiefs at Broncos, another really good game in this slate in the late afternoon. With J.K. Dobbins injured, where are you guys ranking R.J. Harvey this week? I think he's kind of the most interesting name to talk about in this game. Fitz, I'll start with you, and then we'll go to Debra, who's been this huge R.J. Harvey believer all season long.
Yeah, I'm at RB 23. I don't want to go overboard because we know Sean Payton is not going to give R.J. Harvey all of the snaps and touches. Like, Sean Payton always uses multiple running backs. Ask any Saints fan, ask Debro. That's just how Sean Payton rolls. Tyler Bidet is going to get some work. Jaleel McLaughlin is probably going to get some work. And the Chiefs, not an easy matchup. They have a lot of the 7th fewest fantasy points to running backs, and Kansas City is always pretty tough against the run with Steve Spagnuolo calling the shots.
RJ Harvey is RB24 in ECR. Debro, Fitz has him RB23. Does that sound too high, too low, or just right?
No, just right. I mean, I'm living in the same area code. I think him versus Kimani Vidal was a very interesting conversation this week. I've got RJ at RB21. And this is just like splitting hairs between a bunch of other options. Like, I put RJ above Breece Hall in a horrible, horrible matchup this week. And I think the saving grace and the out for RJ Harvey is what we've seen him, the role him operate. Like, him operating in from pretty much the entire season. That's the passing game. To Fitzy's point, yeah, KC, you're going to have a hard time running on them. But I think this is a sneaky good matchup for Bo Nix because KC's pass defense has taken a step back over the last few weeks. And receiving backs versus Kansas City, they've given up the 11th most receiving yards to running backs and the 8th highest yards per reception. So quietly a decent spot for Bo Nix in the passing game. And if RJ pays off on this ranking for us as an RB2, I do think it's via the passing game and his touchdown equity in the offense, not really what he does on the ground.
As of when we're recording, Dobbins still has not gone on IR. If he does end up going on IR, and we know that we're going to get a 4-week runway with Harvey, where are you guys going to be ranking him in future weeks, roughly? Like matchup agnostic, but just in general, where do you see him with Dobbins like entirely not an option?
Similar
RB2.
Later,
20 to
back end
20 to 24.
Okay.
Yeah,
Similar
I'm like
range.
based off of the matchups, somewhere in like the 15 to 20 range, 21 range, somewhere in there.
We've got 2 games left. Sunday Night Football, Lions at Eagles. Great matchup here. Dan Campbell took over the play calling last week, and Jameson Williams immediately had his best game of the season. Do you guys expect that to continue with Campbell running the offense, or was it more a result of facing the terrible Washington defense, D-Bro?
I think the big game was because of facing the Commanders, but to your point about the usage, it absolutely changed. Like since week 9, only 2 of his 13 targets have been deep, and that's basically JMO is Detroit's Kayshon Boutte, Christian Watson. Name your low volume, field stretching, high A dot guy. That's who Jameson Williams, up until the last 2 games, that's who he's been. So if he's going to get more intermediate usage and a bigger share of the target share, having an 18% target share over the last 2 weeks, I'm more on the pro case that this continues. But the matchup is horrible. So I guess more glass half full-ish.
Okay. Fitz, do you have a little more conviction on this one?
I do. I'm pretty optimistic, and Debro hinted at it. Like he was just running a bunch of go routes with John Morton calling the plays. And I think Dan Campbell recognizes what Jared Goff said. He called Jameson Williams a cheat code on crossing routes. Get this. This is from our friends at Fantasy Points Data. Jameson Williams has 7 targets on crossing routes this season. He has caught 6 of them for 164 yards. That works out to 23.4 yards per target. That's pretty good. So, keep running him on crossing routes. And, since the bye, Jameson Williams has been fantastic. 10 catches, 185 yards, 2 touchdowns in those 2 games.
So that would be a cheat code for this game on a crossing route versus Adoree Jackson. Oh, baby. Adoree's not going to be able to keep up with him.
Talking about Jameson Williams, let's kind of transition into our Sunday night prop bet discussion. Each week, we're going to highlight our favorite 3- and 4-star props from the prop bet cheat sheet ahead of Sunday Night Football. And Fitz, you want to talk about Jameson Williams for your prop bet this week?
Total on his receiving yardage, 48.5 yards. I like the over. And so does the Betting Pros prop bet cheat sheet. That is a 3-star bet. And, before the bye, JMO had only averaged, I think, 41.3 receiving yards a game and had only gone over 48.5 in 2 of his 7 games. But yes, he's gone over in each of the last 2 weeks. I think the trend continues. I just think he's on a better trajectory now that the usage looks a little different.
D-Bro, you've got a prop on the other side of this one.
Yeah, Devonta Smith, man, 3-star prop on the cheat sheet, over 4.5 receptions. I'm just going to lean with the volume for the Eagles wide receiver 1 here. I mean, he's hit the over on this 4 of the last 7 games. Detroit since week 6. I mean, they've been kind of a team that's given up a lot of slot production over the last few years. But since week 6, the 11th most receiving yards to opposing slot receivers. So pretty good game incoming for Devonta Smith.
Those were our top prop bets for Sunday Night Football this week, courtesy of Betting Pros. You can check out our NFL prop bet cheat sheet at bettingpros.com/props. Premium subscribers have access to our 5-star prop bets, which have a 57% win rate, and we're up 88 units through week 10. That's really good. Luckily, we've also got a special offer for everyone to unlock a month of Betting Pros Premium for free. Download the Betting Pros app today and use promo code FP1month at checkout to redeem your offer. Guys, we'll go to Monday Night Football here. Honestly, we'll be pretty quick on this because there's not a ton to talk about with these 2 teams. It's Patriots, Cowboys at Raiders. These are two teams with a lot of like very obvious fantasy decisions. So I just want to ask about two of the running backs in this game. Ashton Jeanty and Javonte Williams back-to-back in ECR for the week. So who has the better game on Monday night, Fitz?
I'm going to say Javonte. He is my choice largely because of the big disparity in quality between these two offensive lines. The Cowboys rank 5th in the run blocking metric adjusted line yards, and PFF gives the Dallas offensive line the 11th best run blocking grade. The Raiders are 32nd, dead last in adjusted line yards, 26th in PFF run blocking grade. I think Dallas gets center Cooper Beebe back from an ankle injury this week. When he's back, the Cowboys have a completely healthy offensive line for the first time all season. Most certainly not the case for the Raiders. Their best offensive lineman, tackle Colton Miller, he's on IR with an ankle injury. Interior lineman Jackson Powers Johnson just went on IR with an ankle injury. Like, Ashton Jeanty is going to be a fantastic player, but he just has not found much running room this season, largely because his O-line is in such disrepair.
Debra, who do you like better? This is the highest total of the week, by the way, at 50 points on Hard Rock Bet.
I'll echo everything that Fitzy just laid out here. It's offensive lines. The other thing I'll say is just scoring potential. Like, if you're talking about a passing game that I believe can consistently move the ball and get into the red zone, like touchdowns, obviously freaking matter. And I think Dallas is going to be in the red zone far more than the Raiders in this game. So I'll take Javonte. He's just having such a resurgent season. Like, he's a top 7 back for me this week.
Jeanty is actually ranked higher now in ECR by 2 spots. That it has changed from when I put the sheet together. He's RB7, Javonte RB9. Obviously, both listed as starts.
Javonte disrespect still happening.
Yeah. All right, we'll go ahead and wrap things up there. For Debra and Fitz, I'm Ryan Wormeli. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Best of luck here in Week 11. We'll see you next time.